Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sat down with Oprah for the first time since resigning their formal duties in the royal family, and no subject was off limits. Meghan says she went into the royal family blindly, but received love from the Queen and other members. But she says it didn't take long for that fairy tale to become a nightmare, as she began getting ridiculed in the British press, and the family that promised to protect her turned their backs.
They were willing to lie to protect other members of the family, but they weren't willing to tell the truth to protect me and my husband.
But the betrayal went further. When Meghan was pregnant with her first child, Archie, she says the monarchy felt it wasn't right for her son to be called a prince. This led to a conversation about her being mixed race and what her child would look like.
So we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Going through these attacks made life for Meghan, quote, almost unsurvivable.
I was really ashamed to say it at the time, but I knew that if I didn't say it, that I would do it. And I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
It became clear to the couple that they needed to step back from all the hate.
When I asked the question, why did you leave? The simplest answer is
lack of support.
But life for the couple is looking up. They announced they're going to be having a baby girl this summer. And when it comes to how the royal family will react to this interview, Meghan says she will not live in fear of any potential backlash. Salchi and Grasso, Fox News.
Alrighty, once again, some pretty powerful statements that were made by both Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in that interview with Oprah. And here to break it all down for us is Mr. Saad Salman. He is a blogger for the Royal Watch. He's in charge of the blog, and he is a royal family contributor. Saad, thank you so much for joining us. I need to start by asking you, for somebody that follows the royal family almost every day for work, what was your reaction to last night's interview?
Hi, thank you. I'm delighted to be on. And really, last night was absolutely shocking beyond what most royal watchers even expected. There were so many revelations about Meghan and Harry's time in the royal family that it has really changed how we really thought of their experience and what they think of the institution.
Now, Meghan first said from the very beginning, she kind of squashed some of the rumors that were made in the tabloids following first her relationship with her sister-in-law, Kate Middleton. What can you say about the fact that the tabloids had once reported Meghan Markle made Kate Middleton cry, but it was actually the opposite?
Yeah, it's very surprising that was the case, and the fact that Meghan says that she was not allowed to kind of refute that tabloid claim. But at the same time, you also have to remember that when this happened, Meghan herself was just weeks away from one of the most famous weddings of the century. And she had immense pressure on her. At the same time, Kate herself had just given birth or was about to give birth to her third child, Prince Louis. So really tensions were high at that period. And the fact that Meghan said that she and Kate talked it over, Kate apologized, and she has forgiven Kate is really important to remember in the wider story.
Now, Saad, a huge turning point of the interview was one when Meghan Markle was talking about the fact that she felt very lonely to the point where she was questioning if she even wanted to live anymore. What can you say about last night's really huge advocate for mental health, even if you are part of the royal family or not?
Yeah, that is actually one of the most surprising parts, because in recent years, Prince William, Harry, and Kate, they've launched a slew of mental health charities talking about people to reach out, and the members of the royal family have also spoken about going to therapy to kind of cope with their position and everything. So the fact that Meghan says that she was not allowed to do that or wasn't given sufficient support to go to therapy is really surprising, and I think that we really need to know more details about that and kind of how she was able to get help eventually.
And Saad, I think maybe even before that, Meghan talked about when she was pregnant with Archie. she all of a sudden learned that the baby would not be provided security, that it wouldn't have a title, and then she even mentioned the fact that there was several controversial conversations within the family about the color of Archie's skin tone. So did this surprise you like it surprised Oprah?
Well, actually, in terms of the title, like for context, I'll tell you that title of Prince or Princess of the United Kingdom is limited to the children of a monarch, the grandchildren of a monarch, and the eldest son of the Prince of Wales, which the Queen kind of included all of Prince William and Kate's children in 2012. And so realistically, Meghan and Harry's child was not going to have a royal title of prince or princess at birth. They were going to have the title of, for example, for Archie, he has a courtesy title from the Duchess of Sussex, who would be the Earl of Dumbarton, and kind of the new baby will be Lady named Mountbatten Windsor. So the fact is that it was very much in the letters patent of 1917. It has stated that really, realistically, Meghan and Harry's child would not have a title until Prince Charles becomes king, and then as the grandchildren of a monarch, they will get a title. And at the same time, taxpayer security is what they really are talking about when they're talking about the royal family not providing them security. And so taxpayer security is limited to the senior members of the royal family. And in a similar context, Prince Harry's cousins, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, they got taxpayer security when they were young. At some point before they started university, that was removed. And so really, the royal family saw Archie kind of going into a similar context, and they did not necessarily think that he would have that working royal role. And for him not to have the title, it was a lot more straightforward and kind of written in books than Meghan and Harry both claim.
Now, the comments about the family having conversations about the baby's skin tone, do you think that this is now going to spark question and some sort of controversial look on the royal family and the decisions and the racial remarks that they're making towards members of their own family?
Yeah, I think that it'll spark a lot of conversation, and the fact that they have refused to kind of name the individual who made those remarks does, in a sense, put the entire family under scrutiny. And it, while they did not necessarily go into detail over the remarks, of the fact that they were made as very serious allegation towards kind of how much the environment was in the royal family and in the royal household in the kind of weeks and months leading up to the Sussex's departure.
I think a big, huge statement that was made when Prince Harry came back on and joined Meghan was that he did not want history to repeat itself. So how is this situation being compared to that of his mother, Princess Diana, who he even said, I am lucky enough to be doing this with my wife by my side. I can't imagine how my mother felt dealing with these feelings alone.
Well, he was mentioning Princess Diana's really famous 1995 Panorama interview, in which she spoke very candidly about her experience as a royal and gave a lot of kind of revelations about her time. So the same time, Harry and Meghan are really comparing themselves to the Diana situation, but in recent years it has come out that Diana herself was really manipulated by the BBC reporter, and she was made very paranoid into thinking that even her own children were spying on her, and she was the victim of all sorts of attacks and threats to force her to do the interview. So I think at the same time, Harry and Meghan are not necessarily being kind of manipulated or forced into this. They're doing this to of their own free will, to really put out their own narrative about what happened and kind of engage with what the royal response is to that.
And Saad, if you could please explain, I noticed that a lot of last night, Meghan kept saying the institution. I went to the institution for help and they denied me of that. So as far as the institution works, who do Meghan and Harry and people report to when they are having an issue, whether it's personal or within their family?
So really, the institution represents the members of the royal household. These are leading civil servants who work in these very high-paced jobs for often very little pay and usually just for the prestige of it. And these individuals are responsible for running the day-to-day of the monarchy, from kind of scheduling engagements, working with all sorts of organizations of the governments of the UK and the Commonwealth, and also kind of in dealing with matters inside the palace and outside, kind of relating to staff and other relations. So the fact that Meghan and Harry reached out to this institution and they weren't offered any support, in the sense that Meghan was told that, yes, there are systems available in the palace that allow staff to get therapy and mental health help. But Meghan, as a non-salaried member, who's a principal working member of the family, she cannot get it. At the same time, you have to wonder kind of what prevented Meghan from kind of hiring her own kind of professionals to help her with the journey, because we've received similar accounts from even Prince Harry himself. Spoke recently about how he received help in recent years about the death of his mother and getting over that loss.
Now, they did say that they are in touch with their family right now, but for a minute, Prince Harry admitted that his father was not returning his phone calls. Does it surprise you the way the royal family has reacted to Harry and Meghan kind of going off on their own? And really, what do you think this interview will cause for that family?
I think one of the biggest kind of things I have to keep in mind about this interview, that this is very much Harry and Meghan's side of the story. The royal family has a policy of never complain, never explain, in which for the majority of the stuff that was said at the interview, we will never get an official reply from the royal family. And even Harry and Meghan themselves acknowledged, yes, Meghan was very welcome from the start. She was given a lot of support within the family, but there were also inconsistencies within their statement, in which they talked about how the Queen was always supporting them, but they revealed kind of rifts with Prince Charles, Prince William, and the Duchess of Cambridge. So the fact that this really was allowed to develop, and Harry and Meghan really stood out and went against family policy in a way that really hurt members of the family. And they did things in a way that they describe as kind of essential for their mental health and their well-being, but at the same time the royal family view that quite differently and see kind of the way that this whole exit process was handled was very beneficial to the royal family or to Harry and Meghan, because they got a lot harsher terms than they would have had they done this in a more kind of formal and proper way.
Saad, we saw so much reaction on social media following this interview. People live tweeting as the interview was going on. A lot of people in support of Meghan and Harry's decision to come forward about all this information and their side. A lot of celebrities, including Serena Williams, and a lot of actors supporting them. But I do know that this has been a monarchy alive in the UK for centuries. How do you think that people in London who may be in support of the Queen are reacting to this? Because we saw some pretty mean tweets out there from people that did not believe a word that they were saying.
Yeah, we have to remember that this interview was aimed like majority towards the US kind of audience, to gain kind of Meghan and Harry a new kind of sympathy and a new role within the US. So in the UK, they are a lot of kind of mixed views, because at the same time there are a couple of inconsistencies in the couple's kind of claims about their times as royals, and also they are talking about kind of topics that like race and their kind of struggles, in a sense, that aren't necessarily as straightforward as they do present. So in the UK, a lot of people, for example, they talk about their security being taken away right after they left. Well, I myself am Canadian. They were actually living in my city for quite a bit of the last year. And during that time, as members of the Canadian royal family, they received taxpayer-funded security from Canada, while they were also receiving taxpayer security from the UK. So them talking about if the family removed their security and their fund, that is not necessarily the case. So they've talked about senior royals getting payment for their services, and when they were no longer senior royals, they stopped getting taxpayer-funded security and all kind of those perks that go along with that. So for them to kind of claim it was a malicious intent, it was very much related to the fact that they were no longer senior royals, and those are the things that entails, because it is at the end of the day a public institution that is funded by the taxpayer, so there has to be some level of accountability.
Saad, I'm going to play some video over you right now. It's of Meghan and Harry with their chickens on their new estate in California. They actually announced yesterday that they are having a baby girl, so they're going to have one of each. What do you think happens now for Meghan and Harry? Did they just go about living this cute little life as their family and never be associated with the royal family again?
I think it's very interesting because on one side, Meghan and Harry have said in the past that even this interview was not necessarily supposed to be about their time as royals. It was supposed to be about their new life and their work as senior kind of in California now. But this interview was really so much focused on their struggles with the royal family, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to hear quite a bit about that in the coming years. However, I do think that Meghan and Harry, they have talked about how close they are with the Queen and how she still sees them as valued members of her family. So I think we can see them at some events in the UK, but there is a very deep rift between Harry and Meghan and so many members of the family that it'll be very kind of difficult to see them kind of returning back to even living there on a more regular basis.
All right, Saad Salman, the Royal Watch contributor. Is there anything else that viewers should take away from this interview?
Yeah, it was really one of those moments which I have a feeling that I'll be talking about this interview for years to come. There were so many shocking things that they revealed, and at the same time, it was very much kind of talking about the struggles they went through and things that weren't necessarily present in the media or the coverage of their time as royals. And one of the things that I found really interesting was how much there was no mention of Meghan and Harry's kind of work as royals. Meghan launched a series of really amazing collaborations during her time. She launched a cookbook, she worked in a SmartWorks collection, she edited a Vogue cover, and the fact that those weren't necessarily the focus of her attention at the time, and she was really going through all these other things, is very kind of and shocking to hear. And also at the same time, it's interesting kind of how those things played out in the royal household.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us live here on News Now from Fox. I was even telling people that I wake up for this shift at about 2:45 in the morning, and I stayed up the entire interview last night. So a lot of people were watching, and we do appreciate you for joining us to break down all of